Marcus Chen adjusted his prosthetic leg and winced as he climbed the steps to his apartment. 3 years since the IED explosion in Afghanistan, and he still felt phantom pain in the limb that was no longer there. The VA benefits barely covered rent, and his part-time job at the hardware store wasn't enough to make ends meet. He fumbled with his keys, exhausted from another long day of pretending everything was fine. The knock on his door came at exactly 9:47 p.m. Marcus knew because he'd been staring at the clock, wondering if he could afford groceries this week. He wasn't expecting anyone. Hell, he barely talked to anyone these days except his therapist and the occasional nod to neighbors. When he opened the door, his first thought was that someone was playing an elaborate prank. 3 figures stood in the hallway, but they definitely weren't human. The tallest one had blue-tinted skin that seemed to shimmer under the fluorescent lights, with eyes that were too large and completely black. The other 2 flanked him like bodyguards, their features similar but with variations in skin tone and height. Marcus Chen, formerly Sergeant Chen of the United States Army, the tall one spoke in perfect English, though his voice had an odd harmonic quality that made Marcus's teeth ache. "Who's asking?" Marcus kept his hand on the door ready to slam it shut. His military training kicked in automatically, cataloging exits and potential weapons within reach. "I am Ambassador Zephyr of the Kethmaran Sovereignty. We have traveled far to find you, Sergeant Chen. May we enter? What we have to discuss is of utmost importance and rather unusual." Marcus studied their faces. Whatever this was, they seemed serious. And honestly, his life couldn't get much weirder. "You got 5 minutes." The aliens entered his small apartment, their movements graceful despite their obvious unfamiliarity with human furniture. The ambassador's companions remained standing while Zephyr sat carefully on Marcus's old couch. "Sergeant Chen, are you familiar with the concept of interstellar warfare?" Marcus snorted. "I'm familiar with regular warfare, the kind that costs legs and lives. Indeed, what I am about to tell you may sound impossible, but I assure you it is true. For the past 7 years, while your planet remained unaware, a war has been fought in the stars above. The Kethmaran Sovereignty has been defending this sector against the Drakthol Empire, a species that conquers worlds by enslaving or exterminating their populations. Let me guess, you're the good guys?" Marcus's voice carried the skepticism of someone who'd seen too much to believe in simple good and evil. "We are the ones standing between Earth and annihilation. 3 months ago, our forces achieved victory, but at great cost. Our king, Maltheron the Wise, was mortally wounded in the final battle. Before he died, he made a most unusual request." Zephyr paused as if gathering courage. "He wished to honor the warriors of Earth, having observed your species' remarkable courage through our long-range sensors. Your conflicts, while primitive by our standards, demonstrated something we rarely see among the stars. The willingness to sacrifice everything for others, even strangers." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "What kind of observations?" "Your actions in Afghanistan, Sergeant. When your convoy was attacked and your vehicle destroyed, you remained behind to provide covering fire for your wounded comrades. Despite your own severe injuries, you saved 7 lives that day." The memories hit Marcus like a physical blow. The smoke, the screaming, the weight of Johnson's body as he dragged him to safety. The moment he realized his leg was gone but continued firing anyway. "How could you possibly know that? Our surveillance technology is quite advanced. The king was particularly moved by your sacrifice. In our culture, such honor creates a debt that must be repaid. Since the king died before he could properly reward you, the debt falls to his most prized possession." One of the guards stepped forward, speaking in a language that sounded like wind chimes mixed with growling. Zephyr nodded and turned back to Marcus. "Sergeant Chen, I must ask you to prepare yourself for something unprecedented. The king's companion, Fenris, has chosen to accept the bond transfer. This is significant beyond your understanding. Companion? Perhaps it would be easier to show you." Zephyr stood and walked to the window. He placed his palm against the glass and spoke a single word in his alien language. The air in front of the window began to shimmer, like heat waves rising from hot asphalt. Slowly, a shape materialized. At first, Marcus thought it was some kind of hologram, but then he heard breathing. The creature that appeared was roughly the size of a large wolf, but that's where the similarity ended. Its fur was deep silver with streaks of electric blue that seemed to pulse with their own light. Its eyes were intelligent and golden, with pupils that contracted and dilated as they focused on Marcus. Most unsettling of all were the small spikes along its spine that glowed faintly in the dim apartment lighting. "Sergeant Marcus Chen," the creature spoke, its voice deep and resonant. "I am Fenris, battle companion to the late King Maltheron. I have traveled across the void to meet the human who earned my master's respect." Marcus stumbled backward, his prosthetic catching on the coffee table. "It talks. I do more than talk, human. I'm a Zenthkar, bred for intelligence and loyalty across 1,000 generations. My people have served the royal line since before your species discovered fire." "This is impossible." Fenris tilted his head, a gesture so dog-like that it was almost comforting. "Your species once thought flight was impossible, then space travel, then faster-than-light communication. Yet here we are having a conversation across the species barrier." Zephyr stepped forward again. "Sergeant Chen, according to our laws, Fenris now belongs to you. The king's final wish was that his companion should serve a warrior worthy of respect. You are that warrior. I can't take care of a talking alien wolf. I can barely take care of myself." "You misunderstand," Fenris said, moving closer with fluid grace. "I am not a pet to be cared for. I am a battle companion bred to serve alongside warriors. If anything, I will be taking care of you." Marcus looked around his shabby apartment, at his empty refrigerator, at the stack of unpaid bills on his counter. "Why me? There have to be better choices. Richer people, more successful people." "Wealth and success are not measures of honor," Fenris replied. "Courage in the face of impossible odds, sacrifice for others, the willingness to fight when retreat would be easier. These are the qualities my master valued. These are the qualities you demonstrated." Ambassador Zephyr checked a device on his wrist. "We must depart soon. The bond transfer must be completed tonight according to our customs. Do you accept this responsibility, Sergeant Chen?" Marcus stared at the alien wolf whose golden eyes seemed to see straight through him. In those eyes he saw something he hadn't seen in his own reflection for 3 years. Respect. "What exactly does this bond thing involve? You become my human and I become your Zenthkar. We share a connection that will allow us to communicate across great distances and coordinate in battle. More importantly, my loyalty becomes yours until death. And if I say no, then I return to the homeworld and live out my days in the halls of memory, honoring my dead master." Fenris's ears drooped slightly. It would be a lonely existence, but an honorable one. Marcus thought about his empty apartment, his sleepless nights, the way people looked at him with pity mixed with discomfort. Then he looked at this impossible creature who spoke of honor and loyalty like they meant something. "What the hell?" he said finally. "My life's been pretty boring lately anyway." The bonding ceremony was unlike anything Marcus could have imagined. Ambassador Zephyr had produced a crystalline device the size of a smartphone, its surface covered in symbols that seemed to shift and change when he wasn't looking directly at them. Fenris approached Marcus slowly, his blue-streaked fur rippling with nervous energy. "Place your hand on my head," Fenris instructed. "The device will do the rest." Marcus hesitated. "Will it hurt?" "Pain is temporary. Honor is eternal." But Fenris's voice carried a note of uncertainty. "I have never bonded with a human before. Our physiologies are different. There may be unexpected effects." "Great, more surprises." Marcus reached out and placed his palm between Fenris's ears. The fur was surprisingly warm and seemed to vibrate with some internal energy. Zephyr activated the device. The room filled with a low humming sound that Marcus felt in his bones. The crystal began to glow, casting strange shadows on the walls. Then the pain started. It felt like electricity shooting through his nervous system, but not entirely unpleasant. More like the burn of a hard workout multiplied by 10. Marcus gritted his teeth and held on as images flashed through his mind. Not his own memories, but Fenris's. He saw alien worlds with multiple suns, vast cities built into the sides of cliffs, and battles fought with weapons that turned energy into solid matter. He felt Fenris's loyalty to his previous master, a towering alien king with 4 arms and eyes like burning stars. He experienced the grief of watching that king die, the confusion of being left alone, and the desperate hope that this new bond might fill the emptiness. Then, suddenly he could feel Fenris's emotions as clearly as his own. The alien wolf was terrified but trying to hide it. This was as much of a leap of faith for him as it was for Marcus. The humming stopped. The crystal's light faded. Marcus found himself on his knees, breathing hard with Fenris pressed against his side. "It is done," Zephyr announced. "The bond is complete. Fenris, how do you feel?" "Different," Fenris replied. But now Marcus could hear something else in his voice, a harmonic undertone that resonated directly in his mind. Human emotions are intense, so much fear mixed with determination, so much pain carried quietly. Marcus struggled to his feet, his prosthetic making the movement awkward. "I can hear your thoughts, only the ones I choose to share. Privacy is important, even between bonded pairs. But yes, we can communicate without words now." To demonstrate, Fenris's voice appeared directly in Marcus's head. "This is how we spoke in battle. Silent, instant, precise. That's going to take some getting used to." Ambassador Zephyr and his guards were preparing to leave. "There is one more thing you should know, Sergeant Chen. The bond carries responsibilities beyond companionship. Fenris is not just any Zenthkar. He was the king's companion, which means he carries certain authorities." "What kind of authorities?" "Command codes for Kethmoran technology, access to our databases. Most importantly, the right to call upon our allies in times of need. In accepting this bond, you have become what your people might call an honorary citizen of our empire." Marcus felt Fenris's amusement through their connection. "He makes it sound more important than it is. Most of those privileges are ceremonial." "Not all of them," Zephyr corrected. "Fenris, show him." The alien wolf padded over to Marcus's ancient television and placed one paw against the screen. The TV flickered to life, displaying not channels but what looked like a three-dimensional star map. Dozens of blue dots pulsed across the display, connected by flowing lines of light. "These are Kethmoran holdings in this sector of the galaxy," Fenris explained. "Trade routes, military outposts, research stations. Through our bond, you now have access to this network." "Why would I need access to alien trade routes?" "Because," Zephyr said grimly, "the war with the Drakthul Empire may be over, but peace is fragile. There are other threats among the stars, and Earth sits at a strategically important crossroads. Your planet's isolation will not last forever." Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with his apartment's broken heating. "Are you saying we're in danger?" "I am saying that prepared humans are better than unprepared humans. Fenris will teach you what you need to know. When the time comes, you may find these connections useful." After the aliens left, Marcus and Fenris sat in awkward silence. The reality of the situation was starting to sink in. He now owned, or was owned by, a talking alien wolf with access to galactic technology. It was the kind of thing that happened in movies, not to broken-down veterans living in crappy apartments. "You're wondering if you've made a terrible mistake," Fenris observed. The thought had crossed my mind. I have been wondering the same thing. My previous master was a king among his people. "You are—" Fenris paused, searching for diplomatic words. "A nobody with PTSD and a fake leg? A wounded warrior trying to find his purpose again. Perhaps we are both lost, Marcus Chen." The use of his name spoken aloud rather than through their mental link made it feel more real somehow. "So what happens now?" "Now we learn about each other. And you learn about the galaxy you have inherited access to." Fenris moved to the window and looked out at the city lights. "Your species fascinates me. So much potential, yet so isolated and unaware of what surrounds you. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. Ignorance can be bliss, can it? You fought in a war, Marcus. You have seen what happens when evil is allowed to grow unchecked. The universe is no different from your world. It requires guardians." Marcus joined Fenris at the window. "I'm not much of a guardian anymore. You saved 7 lives while your own leg was being destroyed by shrapnel. What makes you think you are any less capable now?" "Because I'm broken. I wake up screaming from nightmares. I can't hold down a real job. Half the time I can't even look at myself in the mirror." Fenris turned to study him with those intelligent golden eyes. "In my culture, scars are proof of survival, not weakness. Your invisible wounds are no different from the visible ones. They show that you have faced darkness and returned. Easy for you to say. You don't have to live with it, don't I?" Fenris's mental voice carried a weight of old grief. "I watched my master die in my arms. I felt his last breath. Every day since, I have awakened expecting to hear his voice calling for me. The silence is its own kind of torture." Marcus felt a stab of empathy through their bond. Fenris wasn't just some alien companion assigned to him. He was a grieving friend looking for a new purpose, just like Marcus. I'm sorry for your loss. And I am sorry for yours. Perhaps together we can carry these burdens more easily. Marcus's stomach chose that moment to growl loudly. He realized he hadn't eaten since lunch, and even that had been just a granola bar from the hardware store. I should probably feed us, though I have no idea what alien wolves eat. I am omnivorous, though I prefer meat. But Marcus, before we worry about food, there is something else you need to see. Fenris returned to the television and manipulated the display with subtle gestures. The star map disappeared, replaced by what looked like surveillance footage of Earth. This is from our monitoring stations. Your planet is being watched by more than just the Kethmoran sovereignty. The image showed sleek, dark ships lurking at the edge of the solar system. Unlike the graceful curves of Kethmoran technology, these vessels were all angles and spikes, like someone had tried to weaponize a nightmare. Who are they? Pirates, slavers, and worse. Word has spread that Earth's isolation period is ending. Some see opportunity in a young species with no galactic allies, but we have you guys now, right? The Kethmoran will protect us? The sovereignty is vast, Marcus. We cannot station fleets around every developing world. That is why individual bonds like ours exist. Local guardians for local threats. Marcus stared at the dark ships on his television screen. A week ago, his biggest worry had been making rent. Now he was apparently responsible for defending Earth from alien pirates. This is insane. Yes, Fenris agreed. But insanity and heroism often walk hand in hand. Your species has a saying about this, I believe. Something about extraordinary times requiring extraordinary people. Extraordinary times call for extraordinary measures. Close enough. The question is, Marcus Chen, are you ready to become extraordinary? Marcus thought about his empty life, his sleepless nights, his feeling of being useless and forgotten. Then he looked at Fenris, who was offering him a chance to matter again, even if it was completely impossible. I guess we'll find out. Marcus woke up the next morning convinced it had all been an elaborate dream, brought on by too much cheap whiskey and not enough food. Then he rolled over and found himself face to face with golden eyes and silver fur streaked with electric blue. Good morning, Marcus Chen. You snore. Jesus. Marcus jerked backward, nearly falling off his narrow bed. You're real. Disappointingly so. Fenris stretched in a way that was distinctly wolf-like despite his alien nature. I have been monitoring communications while you slept. We have a problem. Marcus fumbled for his prosthetic leg, trying to shake off the disorientation of sleep. What kind of problem? The kind that involves armed humans surrounding your building. That snapped Marcus, fully awake. He hobbled to the window and peered through the blinds. Black SUVs were parked on both ends of his street, and men in dark suits were taking positions around the apartment building. They moved with military precision, but something about their stance screamed government rather than military. Who are they? Unknown? But they arrived approximately 30 minutes after sunrise and have been establishing a perimeter. Their communications are encrypted, but I detected multiple mentions of extraterrestrial contact and immediate containment. Marcus's blood ran cold. Someone saw you guys last night. Likely. The Kethmoran delegation was careful, but your species has more surveillance technology than we initially estimated. A sharp knock echoed through the apartment. Not the polite knock of a neighbor, but the authoritative rap of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Marcus Chen. FBI, open the door! FBI, Marcus whispered. Federal Bureau of Investigation, Fenris supplied helpfully. Your government's domestic intelligence agency. This is unfortunate. Unfortunate. They probably think I'm some kind of terrorist collaborating with aliens, aren't you? Marcus stared at him. Are you serious? I am attempting what you call humor. I am still learning human emotional responses. Another knock, more insistent this time. Mr. Chen, we know you're in there. We just want to talk. They're lying, Fenris said matter-of-factly. Their weapons are drawn and I can hear them discussing containment protocols through the walls. Marcus' mind raced. His military training kicked in automatically, assessing the situation. Ground floor apartment, multiple exits but all probably covered. Unknown number of hostiles with superior firepower and backup. Not great odds. Can you get us out of here? Yes, but not without revealing my capabilities. Once they see what I can do, your government will never stop hunting us. And if we surrender, you will likely disappear into a government facility for debriefing that lasts indefinitely. I will become a test subject. The knock came again, followed by the sound of multiple footsteps in the hallway. They were done being polite. Mr. Chen, we're coming in. Back door? Marcus asked. Covered. Fire escape? Also covered. But I may have an alternative. Fenris padded over to the television, which still displayed the Kethmaran star map. He placed his paw against the screen and spoke a single word in his alien language. The display changed, showing what looked like a building schematic with multiple red dots moving through it. I have activated a localized cloaking field around this room. We are now invisible to their sensors, but the effect will only last a few minutes. Invisible? Think of it as advanced camouflage. Light bends around us. Their thermal imaging will show nothing, but the field is small and temporary. The front door exploded inward with a crash of splintering wood. Marcus grabbed his jacket and the emergency bag he'd kept packed since Afghanistan. Old habits died hard. Through their mental link, he felt Fenris's calm focus so different from his own racing panic. This way, Fenris whispered, leading him toward the bathroom. The bathroom doesn't have an exit. It does now. Fenris placed both front paws against the bathroom wall and spoke another alien word. The wall shimmered and became translucent, like looking through water. Beyond it, Marcus could see the alley behind his building. Molecular disruption field, Fenris explained. Temporary, but effective. They stepped through the wall as if it were made of mist. Marcus felt a strange tingling sensation as the molecules of concrete and steel parted around him. Behind them, he could hear the FBI agents searching his apartment, their confused voices echoing as they found no trace of their target. The alley was clear, but that wouldn't last long. Marcus could hear radio chatter from multiple directions as the federal agents coordinated their search. We need transportation, Marcus said. Already arranged. A sleek motorcycle materialized beside them, its engine running silently. It looked like no bike Marcus had ever seen. All smooth curves and gleaming metal with no visible exhaust or gas tank. Kethmaran technology, Fenris explained. Leaping onto the back of the bike with surprising grace, powered by quantum energy cells. It will not appear on any of their scanning devices. Marcus swung his leg over the bike, grateful that its low seat accommodated his prosthetic. The moment his hands touched the handlebars, information flooded his mind through his bond with Fenris. He understood the controls instinctively, as if he'd been riding alien motorcycles his entire life. Where are we going? Somewhere we can regroup and plan our next move. Your government's reaction was predictable but premature. We need to establish contact on our terms, not theirs. The bike lifted off the ground with no more sound than a whisper of displaced air. Marcus's stomach dropped as they rose above the alley. But the sensation was surprisingly smooth. Through the bike's systems, he could see the heat signatures of the FBI agents still searching the building below. They flew north out of the city, staying low enough to avoid commercial air traffic, but high enough to clear most obstacles. The landscape rolled past beneath them, suburbs giving way to farmland, then forests. Marcus had never seen his home state from this perspective, and despite their desperate situation, he felt a moment of wonder. Where exactly are we going? A facility that does not officially exist, one of several that the Kethmaran established during our war with the Drakthul Empire. It was meant to serve as a safe house for human contacts, should we need to recruit local allies. You've been planning this for a while. The sovereignty believes in preparation. Your species shows great potential, but also great unpredictability. Having contingencies seemed wise. They landed in a clearing deep in the national forest, miles from any road or hiking trail. At first, Marcus saw nothing but trees and undergrowth. Then Fenris approached a particular oak tree and pressed his paw against its bark. The tree shimmered and revealed itself to be a hologram hiding a metal doorway. Impressive camouflage. The facility extends deep underground. It contains everything we might need: weapons, supplies, communication equipment, and most importantly, a direct link to the Kethmaran High Command. The interior was a strange blend of alien technology and human comfort. The corridors were lined with the same crystalline displays Marcus had seen in his apartment, but the furniture was clearly designed for human use. Emergency rations were labeled in English, and the sleeping quarters featured beds rather than whatever aliens used for rest. How long have you been preparing for this? 7 years. Since we first detected your species' radio transmissions and realized Earth was inhabited by a potentially spacefaring civilization. The sovereignty has protocols for first contact, but your government's reaction suggests those protocols may need adjustment. They settled into what appeared to be a command center. Multiple screens showed news feeds from around the world, most still unaware of the morning's events. But Marcus could see government officials in various countries receiving urgent briefings and military units quietly shifting to higher alert levels. The secret's out, isn't it? Partially. Your government knows something happened, but they lack crucial details. This gives us a brief window of opportunity. Opportunity for what? To make contact on our terms. To present the truth before they can construct their own narrative. Your species has a tendency toward fear when faced with the unknown. Fenris activated one of the displays, showing the same dark ships Marcus had seen the night before. But now there were more of them, and they were closer to Earth. The situation is deteriorating. These pirates know that first contact protocols have been initiated. They are accelerating their timeline. What timeline? Slavery raids. Resource extraction. Possibly worse. Without galactic protection treaties, Earth is seen as undefended territory by the worst elements among the stars. Marcus stared at the screen, feeling the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders like a familiar pack. He'd carried the lives of his squad in Afghanistan. Now somehow he was carrying the fate of his entire planet. So what do? We do what warriors do, Marcus Chen. We stand and fight. But first we need allies among your own people. The FBI agents this morning were acting on incomplete information and fear. We need to find humans who can think beyond their immediate reactions. I might know someone. Marcus thought of General Patricia Hayes, his former commanding officer. She'd visited him in the hospital after Afghanistan, and they'd kept in loose contact since his discharge. If anyone in the military could handle the truth about alien contact, it would be her. She's Joint Chiefs now. If we could get to her. Dangerous. Your government will be monitoring all communications from known associates. Not all communications. Marcus smiled grimly. Pat Hayes taught me a few things about unconventional warfare. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. Fenris's ears perked up with interest. What do you have in mind? We're going to give the government exactly what they want. A chance to capture an alien. But on our terms, with our rules, and with the element of surprise on our side. You wish to surrender? I wish to make an entrance they'll never forget. Time to show them what humans are really capable of when we have the right tools. Through their bond, Marcus felt Fenris's approval and excitement. For the first time since the bonding, they were thinking like true partners. Predator and warrior ready to hunt together. Show me what other toys this place has hidden away. The Pentagon at night was a fortress of light against the darkness, its corridors patrolled by some of the most elite security forces on Earth. Getting inside undetected should have been impossible. Should have been. Marcus and Fenris materialized in a supply closet on the 3rd floor, the alien cloaking technology making their infiltration as simple as walking through walls. Marcus wore what Fenris called adaptive armor, a sleek black suit that looked like advanced tactical gear but felt lighter than cotton. It responded to his thoughts, providing enhanced strength to compensate for his prosthetic leg, and displaying tactical information directly in his field of vision. 2 guards approaching from the east corridor. Fenris whispered through their mental link. Routine patrol. They will pass in 30 seconds. Marcus checked his stolen security badge. Taken from a Pentagon employee's wallet 3 hours. Earlier and modified by Keth Moran technology to bypass any scanner in the building. The plan was simple in concept but complex in execution. Reach General Hayes, convince her to listen, and establish official first contact before the pirates orbiting Earth decided to move. Why couldn't we just call her? Marcus asked silently. Because your government monitors all communications to high-ranking officials. Because she would not have believed a phone call. And because dramatic gestures are sometimes necessary to overcome preconceptions. The guards passed without noticing the supply closet's occupants. Marcus counted to 10, then stepped into the corridor. His adaptive armor immediately shifted color to match the dim lighting, making him nearly invisible to casual observation. General Patricia Hayes worked late, as she always had. Marcus found her in her office on the 5th floor, reviewing reports by the light of her desk lamp. She looked older than he remembered, with more gray in her black hair and new lines around her eyes. The weight of command never got lighter, only more familiar. Marcus knocked softly on her open door. Permission to enter, General? Pat looked up and her face went through a series of expressions. Surprise, recognition, concern, and finally wary acceptance. Marcus Chen. Should I be asking how you got past Pentagon security? Probably not, ma'am. But I need 5 minutes of your time. It's about this morning's incident at my apartment. Her expression hardened. You mean the FBI operation to investigate extraterrestrial contact? The one where the target mysteriously vanished from a secured location? That's the one. Marcus stepped into the office and Fenris padded in behind him, his cloaking field finally dropping. General Hayes reached for her sidearm with reflexes that hadn't slowed despite her years behind a desk. Then she saw Fenris clearly and froze, her hand halfway to her weapon. Holy shit. Ma'am, Marcus said calmly. I'd like you to meet Fenris, battle companion to the late King Maltherin of the Kethmoran sovereignty. Fenris, this is General Patricia Hayes, the best commanding officer I ever served under. Fenris inclined his head in what Marcus had learned was a gesture of respect among his people. General Hayes, your reputation precedes you. Marcus speaks of you with great admiration. Pat stared at the talking alien wolf for a long moment. Then she slowly released her weapon and sat back in her chair. I need a drink. I would recommend against alcohol, Fenris said seriously. What I'm about to tell you requires a clear mind. Marcus, Pat said carefully. Please tell me you haven't been brainwashed by aliens. No brainwashing, General. Just a really weird inheritance and a crash course in galactic politics. Marcus settled into the chair across from her desk. The short version is that Earth has been under alien protection for 7 years without knowing it. That protection just ended, and now we're on our own with some very unfriendly neighbors. Fenris activated a holographic display above Pat's desk, showing the current positions of ships around Earth. The friendly blue dots of Kethmoran vessels were vastly outnumbered by hostile red contacts. These are Zerathi raiders, Fenris explained. Slavers and resource pirates. They typically target newly contacted worlds. During the vulnerable period after first contact but before galactic treaty protections take effect, Pat studied the display with the tactical eye that had made her one of the youngest generals in Army history. How many ships? 37 combat vessels, ranging from single-pilot raiders to battlecruisers capable of destroying your largest cities. They are currently maintaining position beyond your moon's orbit, waiting. Waiting for what? For Earth's governments to collapse into chaos following first contact, making the planet easier to subjugate. It is a common pattern among pre-spaceflight civilizations. Marcus leaned forward. But it doesn't have to happen that way. The Kethmoran want to offer Earth membership in their sovereignty, full protection, access to galactic trade networks, and most importantly, the technology to defend ourselves. What's the catch? Pat's voice carried the skepticism of someone who'd spent decades in military intelligence. No catch, Fenris replied. Only requirements. Earth must demonstrate that it can act as a unified planet, not a collection of competing nation-states. It must show commitment to peaceful development and mutual defense. And it must prove that humanity can be trusted with advanced technology. Pat was quiet for a long moment, absorbing the implications. And if we can't meet those requirements, then Earth remains isolated and defenseless against threats like the Zerathi. Your species would eventually develop space travel on its own, but that process would take decades. The raiders will not wait that long. How long do we have? Fenris's ears drooped slightly. Our intelligence suggests they will begin their assault within 72 hours. They are currently debating whether to start with major population centers or resource extraction facilities. The weight of that statement settled over the room like a physical presence. Pat rubbed her temples, a gesture Marcus remembered from their missions in Afghanistan when the impossible was being asked of them. What do you need from me? She asked finally. A meeting, Marcus said. Tomorrow morning. Joint Chiefs, National Security Council, maybe the President if you can swing it. We need to make formal contact before the shooting starts. Marcus, even if I could arrange that, do you have any idea how this looks? A discharged soldier with PTSD shows up with a talking alien wolf, claiming Earth is about to be invaded? I know how it sounds, General. But look at me. Marcus stood and gestured to his adaptive armor, which responded by displaying real-time tactical data about the Pentagon's security systems. This suit is made from materials that don't exist on Earth. Fenris can walk through walls. We infiltrated the most secure building in America to have this conversation. Speaking of which, Fenris interjected, we should leave soon. Your security systems are remarkably persistent and our cloaking technology is not perfect. Pat stood as well, her decision made. I can get you a meeting, but it won't be easy, and there will be conditions. Name them. You surrender yourselves to military custody pending the meeting. Demonstrate good faith. Marcus felt Fenris's immediate objection through their bond, but also his grudging acceptance of the logic. Acceptable, Marcus said, but we keep our equipment and Fenris doesn't get treated like a lab rat. I'll do what I can. But Marcus, if this goes wrong, General, we're all dead anyway. But if it goes right, humanity takes its first step into a much larger universe. Fenris moved to the window and gazed up at the night sky. Through their bond, Marcus felt his partner's mixture of hope and anxiety. Everything they'd worked for came down to the next 24 hours. General, Fenris said without turning around, there is something else you should know. The bond between Marcus and myself makes him more than just a messenger. He now carries the authority to negotiate on behalf of the Kethmoran sovereignty. Any agreement he makes will be honored by our people. Pat looked sharply at Marcus. Is that true? Apparently. I'm still figuring out all the implications myself. Jesus, Marcus. Do you realize what you're talking about? You're not just asking me to believe in aliens. You're asking me to trust the fate of our entire species to a broken-down sergeant with a talking wolf. Marcus met her gaze steadily. Yes, ma'am. That's exactly what I'm asking. For a moment, the only sound in the office was the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant murmur of late-night Pentagon activity. Then Pat smiled, the same smile she'd worn when asking Marcus to volunteer for impossible missions in Afghanistan. Well, hell. It's not like my job was getting boring anyway. She reached for her secure phone. Give me an hour to make some calls. Then we're going to change the world. As she dialed, Marcus felt Fenris's satisfaction through their bond. The first step was complete. Now came the hard part, convincing Earth's leaders to trust humanity's future to an alliance forged between a wounded warrior and an alien wolf who believed in honor above all else. Outside the window, stars that had once seemed distant and cold now pulsed with possibility and threat. The universe was vast and dangerous, but for the first time since Afghanistan, Marcus felt like he was fighting for something that mattered. Fenris, he whispered through their mental link. I hope we know what we're doing. We do not, Fenris replied with characteristic honesty. But we know why we are doing it. Sometimes that is enough. The Situation Room deep beneath the Pentagon had hosted countless crisis meetings, but none quite like this. President Sarah Martinez sat at the head of the table, flanked by the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the National Security Advisor, and the Director of the CIA. At the far end of the room, Marcus Chen stood in restraints beside an alien wolf that occasionally offered commentary on human psychology. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, President Martinez said, her voice carrying the controlled tension of someone trying to process the impossible. Sergeant Chen, you're telling me that Earth has been under alien protection for 7 years? That protection has now ended, and we have less than 48 hours before we're invaded by space pirates? Yes, Madam President. That's the simplified version. And your proof of this is a talking wolf. I am a Zenthkar, not a wolf, Fenris corrected mildly, though I understand the comparison. Your taxonomy lacks appropriate categories for my species. Admiral Chen, no relation to Marcus despite the name, leaned forward aggressively. This is insane. We're discussing policy based on the claims of a soldier with documented PTSD and a creature that could be an elaborate hoax. Marcus felt Fenris's amusement through their bond. Admiral, would you like me to demonstrate my authenticity? How? Fenris casually placed one paw against the table's surface. The secure communications array built into the furniture activated, displaying classified satellite feeds from around the globe. Your orbital assets are currently tracking 37 unidentified craft in Earth's vicinity. Would you like to see them? The room fell silent as the main display showed radar contacts that military intelligence had been puzzling over for days. The objects were too large to be asteroids, too fast to be natural phenomena, and too numerous to be coincidence. How did you access that system? The CIA director demanded. Kethmoran technology is compatible with your electronics given appropriate interface protocols. The restraints you placed on Marcus are also electronically controlled. If you're curious, the restraints around Marcus's wrists clicked open and fell to the floor. Point made, President Martinez said dryly. Let's assume for the moment that this is real. What exactly are you proposing? Marcus stepped forward, his adaptive armor shifting color in response to the room's lighting. The Kethmoran sovereignty is offering Earth membership in their galactic alliance. Full protection, access to trade networks, and most importantly, the technology to defend ourselves. And what do they want in return? Unity, Fenris replied. Your species must demonstrate that it can act as a single civilization, rather than competing tribal groups. You must commit to peaceful development and mutual defense, and you must prove that humans can be trusted with advanced technology. General Hayes, who had been silent until now, spoke up. What does unity mean in practical terms? A single planetary government with authority to speak for all of Earth, Marcus said. I know how that sounds, but it's standard for species joining galactic civilization. You can't have 50 different countries all claiming to represent humanity. The Secretary of Defense slammed his hand on the table. Absolutely not. You're talking about the end of national sovereignty, the destruction of democracy as we know it. I'm talking about survival, Marcus shot back. Do you see those contacts on the screen? Each one of those ships can level a city. They're not interested in negotiating with individual nations. They want resources and slaves, and they don't care which flag you wave while they take them. President Martinez held up a hand for silence. Even if we wanted to consider this proposal, the logistics are impossible. You're talking about global political unification in less than 2 days. It took us 6 months just to negotiate the last trade agreement with Canada, which is why we need to think differently, Marcus said. Not permanent unification, but emergency authorization. A temporary world government with limited powers just long enough to negotiate with the Kethmoran and establish basic defenses. Under whose authority? The National Security Advisor asked. Marcus looked directly at President Martinez. Yours, Madam President. The United States has the largest military, the most advanced technology, and the infrastructure to coordinate a global response. Other world leaders might accept American leadership in a crisis, especially if the alternative is extinction. Fenris activated another display, showing the approaching pirate fleet in detail. I should mention that the Zarathi raiders have accelerated their timeline. They will begin their assault in 18 hours, not 48. 18 hours. Admiral Chen stood up so quickly his chair toppled backward. That's not enough time to evacuate major cities, let alone organize a defense. It is enough time to make a decision, Fenris replied calmly. Accept the Kethmoran offer, and we can have defensive systems operational within 6 hours. Refuse, and Earth stands alone against a force that has conquered dozens of worlds. President Martinez stared at the display showing the alien fleet. Marcus could see her weighing options, calculating political costs against human survival. It was the kind of decision that defined presidencies and shaped history. What guarantees do we have? She asked finally. How do we know this isn't just one group of aliens trying to trick us into surrendering to them instead of another group? Marcus felt the answer through his bond with Fenris before the alien spoke. Because you have a bonded representative with access to our command networks, Marcus can verify any claim I make and communicate directly with our leadership. The bond cannot be faked or manipulated. Show them, Marcus said. Fenris placed his paw on Marcus's forehead, and suddenly the room filled with images that weren't quite holograms, more like shared memories projected into everyone's consciousness. They saw the Kethmoran homeworld, vast cities built into living coral reefs beneath twin suns. They experienced the final battle against the Drakthul Empire, felt the grief of King Maltheron's death, and understood the weight of responsibility that had passed to Marcus through their bond. When the vision ended, several people in the room were openly weeping. Even Admiral Chen looked shaken. That's what you're fighting to preserve, Marcus said quietly. Not just human life, but human potential. The chance to become something greater than we are. President Martinez wiped her eyes and straightened in her chair. General Hayes, how quickly can we get the other world leaders on a secure conference call? 20 minutes, maybe 30. Do it. And get me the Speaker of the House and the Senate Majority Leader. If we're going to do this, it has to be legal. As the room erupted into activity, Marcus felt a moment of profound vertigo. A week ago, he'd been a nobody struggling to pay rent. Now he was helping to negotiate humanity's entry into galactic civilization. The scope of it was overwhelming. Are we doing the right thing? He asked Fenris through their private link. There is no right thing in situations like this, Fenris replied. There are only choices and consequences. But I have watched your species for 7 years, Marcus Chen. Humans have a gift for making impossible choices work through sheer determination and creativity. If any species can thrive among the stars, it is yours. The secure conference system activated, showing world leaders from across the globe on multiple screens. President Martinez took a deep breath and began what would later be called the most important speech in human history. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm about to tell you something that will sound impossible, but in 18 hours, everything we know about our place in the universe is going to change forever. As she spoke, Marcus watched the faces of Earth's leaders react to the truth about their cosmic situation. Some looked terrified, others skeptical. A few seemed almost relieved that humanity's isolation was finally ending. Through the Pentagon sensors, Marcus could track the approaching alien fleet. 18 hours until first contact became first combat. 18 hours to unite a fractured world and forge an alliance that would determine humanity's future among the stars. He thought about the 7 soldiers he'd saved in Afghanistan, the choices that had cost him his leg but given him this moment. Every sacrifice had led to this room, this decision, this chance to save not just a few lives but an entire world. "Fenris," he whispered, "let's make history." 12 hours later, Marcus stood on the observation deck of the hastily constructed orbital platform, watching Earth's first space battle unfold against the backdrop of stars. The Kethmaran had been true to their word. Defensive systems had materialized around Earth with impossible speed, built by constructor ships that folded matter itself into new configurations. Humanity's entry into galactic civilization hadn't been smooth. 3 world leaders had refused to accept the emergency unity government. The Russian president had demanded proof that the aliens were real, only to change his mind when a Zarathi raider vaporized an unmanned research station near Vladivostok as a demonstration. The Brazilian government had tried to negotiate separate terms until Fenris politely explained that the pirates didn't recognize national boundaries, but in the end, fear had accomplished what diplomacy couldn't. President Martinez now held emergency authority over a unified Earth Defense Force, backed by every major world power. It was temporary, fragile, and probably unconstitutional, but it was enough. "Incoming wave," Fenris announced through their mental link. 15 raiders heading for the Australian defense grid. Marcus activated his command interface, the alien technology responding to his thoughts as naturally as breathing. Through the Kethmaran network, he coordinated with defense platforms scattered across the solar system. It was surreal. A month ago, he'd been fixing leaky faucets at a hardware store. Now he was commanding humanity's space navy. The Zarathi ships were sleek predators built for speed and violence. They moved like sharks through the vacuum, their weapons crackling with energy that could melt steel. But Earth's defenders were ready. "Fire," Marcus commanded. Lance beams of coherent light reached across millions of kilometers in microseconds. 3 Zarathi raiders simply vanished, their hulls unable to withstand weapons that reorganized matter at the quantum level. The survivors scattered, trying to use Earth's gravity well to mask their approach. "They're adapting faster than expected," Fenris observed. "The Zarathi have fought Kethmaran technology before. Then we give them something they haven't fought." Marcus opened a channel to the surface. "General Hayes, deploy the human volunteer squadrons." "Marcus, those pilots have had 6 hours of training on alien fighters. It's suicide. It's necessary. The Zarathi expect Kethmoran tactics, not human ones. Sometimes crazy is what wins battles." On his tactical display, Marcus watched as 20 small craft launched from hidden bases around the globe. They were piloted by volunteers from every major air force, pilots who'd looked at impossible odds and decided to fly anyway. The fighters were Kethmaran designs, but modified with human instincts for aerial combat. Colonel Sarah Banshee Washington, former Thunderbird pilot and the squadron's leader, came over the comm with her characteristic Texas drawl. "Earth Defense Squadron is airborne and ready to dance. Where do you want us, Control?" "Vector 27 Mark IV. You've got 6 Zarathi trying to flank our lunar installations. Show them how humans fight." Marcus felt a fierce pride as he watched the human pilots engage. They flew with a recklessness that would have horrified Kethmoran commanders, using atmospheric combat techniques in space, treating their fighters like extensions of their own bodies rather than careful technological tools. The Zarathi raiders, accustomed to the methodical precision of galactic warfare, were completely unprepared for kamikaze runs that turned into last-second barrel rolls. Or pilots who used their ship's hulls as weapons when their energy reserves ran low? Banshee here. Washington's voice crackled with adrenaline. Scratch 2 more pirates. These things fly like dream machines with attitude problems. But the battle was far from over. Long-range sensors showed the main Zarathi fleet moving into attack position. 30 capital ships that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. Each one was a mobile fortress capable of reducing continents to ash. Marcus, President Martinez's voice came through from the Surface Command Center. The Kethmoran ships are requesting permission to engage. They're asking for your authorization. That stopped Marcus cold. My authorization? Apparently, as the bonded representative, you have tactical command authority over Allied forces. They won't move without your order. Through his bond with Fenris, Marcus felt the aliens' mixture of amusement and respect. They are testing you, Marcus Chen. Will Earth's representative show wisdom or recklessness when commanding forces beyond his species' comprehension? Marcus studied the tactical display. The Kethmoran ships were magnificent, elegant curves of living metal that pulsed with internal light. Each one was more powerful than Earth's entire defense grid, but there were only 6 of them against 30 Zarathi dreadnoughts. Negative, Marcus said finally. Kethmoran forces maintain defensive positions around Earth. Do not engage unless directly attacked. Marcus, General Hayes protested. Those ships could end this battle in minutes, and prove that humanity needs others to fight its battles. The Zarathi aren't just testing our defenses, General. They're testing our character. If we hide behind alien shields at the first sign of trouble, we'll never be seen as equals in galactic civilization. Fenris's approval flowed through their bond like warm sunlight. You begin to understand the deeper game, partner. The Zarathi fleet approached in standard formation, a spearhead of heavy battleships, followed by support vessels and troop transports. They'd done this hundreds of times before, reducing planetary defenses with overwhelming firepower before landing ground forces to secure resources and capture slaves. But Earth's defenders had surprises of their own. Activate the asteroid field, Marcus commanded. Across the solar system, thousands of what the Zarathi assumed were natural asteroids suddenly revealed themselves as camouflaged weapons platforms. Hidden construction crews had been working for hours, turning space rocks into gun batteries powered by Kethmoran energy cells. The pirates' formation shattered as they found themselves in a crossfire from every direction. Beams of coherent energy reached out from seemingly empty space, and more than one Zarathi captain died cursing the deceptive nature of human tactics. Phase 2, Marcus announced. Colonel Washington, take your squadron and hit their command ship. Use the debris field for cover. Copy that, Control. Banshee Squadron, follow me into hell. Marcus watched the human pilots dive into a maelstrom of weapons fire and exploding ships. They flew like demons, using wreckage as shields and timing their attacks to the microsecond. It was beautiful and terrifying and utterly, completely human. The Zarathi command ship, a kilometer-long monster bristling with weapons, found itself swarmed by gnats that refused to be swatted. Human pilots used tactics no sane pilot would attempt, flying close enough to their targets to use personal weapons when their ship's systems failed. This is Banshee. Washington's voice was strained but determined. I've lost main power and half my wing, but I've got a clear shot at their bridge. Going in. Sarah, no. Marcus shouted, but it was too late. Colonel Washington's fighter punched through the command ship's shields and impacted directly into the bridge superstructure. The explosion was visible from Earth, a brief star that marked the sacrifice of a pilot who'd chosen duty over survival. The Zarathi fleet wavered. Their command structure shattered, their formation broken. They faced an enemy that fought with a ferocity they'd never encountered. Pirates were bullies, accustomed to easy victories over helpless targets. They weren't prepared for prey that bit back. All ships, this is Admiral Kresthar. A gravelly voice came over the communication channels. Withdraw to minimum safe distance. The humans have exceeded our projections. Marcus felt a moment of fierce satisfaction, but Fenris's worry tempered it. This is not over, Marcus. The Zarathi will regroup and return with heavier forces. Earth has won a battle, not a war. Then we'd better make sure we're ready for the next one. As the pirate fleet retreated beyond the moon's orbit, Marcus opened a channel to the surface. Madam President, the immediate threat has passed. Earth's first space battle is a victory. At what cost? Martinez's voice was heavy with the weight of command. Marcus looked at the casualty report scrolling across his display. 37 defense platform crews dead. 18 pilots lost, including Sarah Washington. Thousands of support personnel who'd risked everything to defend a world they'd never see from space. The cost of freedom, Marcus said quietly. The cost of proving that humanity belongs among the stars. Through the observation deck's transparent aluminum, Earth hung in space like a blue marble flecked with white clouds. It looked so peaceful from here, so fragile. But Marcus knew better now. Humanity wasn't fragile. They were survivors, fighters, builders who could turn empty space into fortresses and turn ordinary people into heroes. Fenris, he said aloud. Think your people will accept us now? The alien wolf padded over to stand beside him, golden eyes reflecting the starlight. I think, Marcus Chen, that the galaxy will never be quite the same. Your species brings something new to the cosmic community. Hope mixed with stubborn refusal to surrender. It will be interesting. Is that good or bad?